Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome in to another YouTube live stream. I am John Kurtz. Tonight, it's not going to be the most on-field football heavy show that I have ever done, and that's simply dictated by the headlines, by the news. We got a big bomb dropped on us this afternoon, just a couple of hours ago, that the Big Ten is closing in on a private equity deal that also includes a 10-year extension of the grant of rights, which has a wide sweeping range of consequences that we get to talk about. More greed in college football, plunging us into a hole that the sport will never pull itself out of. But we're going to start, obviously, with the coaching rumors. And I say rumors, it's really reports-ish, like informed hot boards that are out there on 24/7 Sports. They each mentioned a different Big 12 or I guess now former Big 12 coach, but might as well be a Big 12 coach. Two Big 12 coaches who began the season as Big 12 coaches anyway. Plus, as far as this weekend goes, it is the time for Houston and Cincy to get their shot, okay? Heard a lot about Houston in particular, not feeling like they believe they are respected enough within the conference, what they have this year. Well, you get your shot. You get your shot. Let's see what happens this weekend with Iowa State and Texas Tech. Two of, well, basically the two top Big 12 contenders. Plus, Dion. I think a lot of guys get him wrong. A lot of fans get him wrong, guys and gals. People don't appreciate enough, like, kind of who he is as a guy. And I think that came across in his apology to BYU. So I want to talk about that. Oh, by the way, Colorado got some punishment laid down for the Big 12 this week. Appreciate everybody filing in here. Please do like the video. Please do subscribe to the channel. All that stuff really helps. Greatly appreciate everybody who does that. If you are interested in being a part of the show tonight, obviously fill up the chat. Good to see you, Big Red Raider. Good to see you, Chuck. Thank you all for being here. But everybody else, fill it up. You can click the $sign below the chat box if you'd like to submit a super chat and guarantee that your question or comment makes it on the show tonight. Plus, just a way to support what it is that I'm doing. And I greatly appreciate everybody who does that. You can as well submit a super chat, or rather submit a question or comment on Venmo at John-Kurtz-4 if you want to do it that way. It is a great way to do it. If you're not catching the show live, you can still be a part of everything, and I'll kick off the next show with your question or comment. Let's see. Open for Business Big 12 newsletter. You see the sign. OFBnews.com is where you can sign up for the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter. 5,200 plus Big 12 fans already do. Let's not waste any more time. One Big 12 coach is front and center in the Arkansas coaching search, like quite literally, at least according to On3. Okay. And there's another that still makes the discussion. And that is the one that is probably more shocking out of these two. Let me tell you. All right. So Arkansas joined the race to try and hire a football coach when they got rid of Sam Pittman after a blowout loss to Notre Dame. I mean, they got clocked by the Fighting Irish, and Sam Pittman was already on thin ice. And you're seeing a trend. I mean, I think in college football, the urgency has been cranked up so much more with everybody feeling existential threats, NIL, how that has jacked up the timeline in college sports. It's making sure you have a coach in and being able to hit the portal and get your players, like, I say NIL, that's really more of a transfer portal deal because of the timing. But all these different factors, I think, have ramped up the likelihood that we get coaches fired in season. And so, like, we had Deshaun Foster at UCLA. Virginia Tech was not shy about making a move. Oklahoma State gets rid of a legend and Mike Gundy. Now we have Arkansas here and Sam Pittman. I feel like I'm still missing another one or two in there, right? I mean, it's come quicker, and then it becomes sort of like a race. Like, if you're going to be competing for the same types of coaches, perhaps there would be some overlap between like an Oklahoma State and an Arkansas. You got to get out there, man. You got to make sure that you are out there and ready to go. Plus, you got to make sure that you can get your boosters, your fans, your money people rallied around somebody as quickly as possible to be able to go hit the portal as hard as you possibly can. So Arkansas is open. How good of a job is it? Well, it's definitely like, I don't know. What would you say it is in the SEC? Like 8th, 9th, 10th best job of the SEC, something like that. Going to be tougher to make the playoff there, I would say, than at like an Oklahoma State. But you are in the SEC. You do have Tyson Chicken You've got Walmart. You got a lot of money in Northwest Arkansas. I think Arkansas probably does have plenty of money available to it if they're willing to get everybody on the same page and buy in, which it sure sounds like the word coming out of Arkansas is that is definitely the goal. Okay, so would Big 12 coaches be interested? You knew that we couldn't actually have a conversation about an open job in college football without Big 12 coaches being mentioned, right? I mean, that's just a prereq, basically, for any discussion about coaches in college football these days when a job is open. There's going to be a long list of Big 12 coaches that make it, although I have not seen miraculously, other than the typical joke made by our friends at the Gambling Gauchos, I have not seen Matt Campbell linked to the Arkansas job, which is astounding. That must be the only job in college football in the last 7 years that has not actually mentioned him yet as a candidate. But I want to show you just real quick. Let's take a look at this graphic from On3. Okay, Pete Nakos, one of the big newsbreakers in the sport. This is how they summed up the graphic. All right. Do you see who's front and center on this graphic? Front and center on the graphic of the Arkansas coaching search. Names to know, timelines to watch. That is one Deion Sanders. Okay. Now, I will admit, when I first saw that and saw his name linked to it, I was like, man, that seems like a weird fit. I guess the SEC makes sense, but does he have any connection to Arkansas other than Jerry Jones? And supposedly, if you go through and read this, Jerry Jones is supporting Rhett Lashley from SMU, who is on the right there, which that makes a ton of sense that Arkansas would want him. If I were Rhett Lashley, I don't think I would leave SMU for that job because it's going to be, once again, more difficult to make the playoff. You're going to have a ton of financial support at SMU. Things are already sort of rolling there, but I think that will be the number one target that is likely chased by Arkansas. But after that, the way On3 would tell you and the way they listed it in this article, Deion would be one of the next candidates in line to at least get a look here. And part of the reason is because apparently Deion did interview for the Arkansas job when Hunter Yurachek, the AD, was in the process of hiring Sam Pittman. Okay, so here's a little blurb. Beyond Lashley, another sitting Power 4 head coach to know is Colorado head coach Deion Sanders. He previously interviewed for the Arkansas job when Yurachek was in the process of hiring Pittman. He has brought the Buffaloes back to relevancy and has made multiple top 25 appearances the last 2 years. Yurachek was impressed by Sanders previously. Okay. Now, it does say another question will be salary because Deion just signed an extension increasing his base salary to $10 million in 2025. Rising to $12 million by 2029. Let's see. What was Sam Pittman? Sam Pittman's salary, Arkansas. Okay, yeah. So Sam Pittman was making like $6 million. It looks like, just a quick glance at this contract and the structure of it when he signed it in 2022. $6 million. So that would be a pretty hefty increase that you're going to, you would think you'd probably have to pay Coach Prime more than $10 million. If you're going to get him to go. Plus, you're going to have the money in line to make sure that you've got NIL and everything that he needs to compete. All of that seems a little bit unlikely. And this article even actually acquiesces a bit to say it's unlikely. Where's the specific wording here? Sanders leaving for Arkansas is unlikely. That is what it says. And it's right when it starts talking about the salary. So maybe the money would be the biggest part of that. If we're talking about just pure nuts and bolts as a coach, Hunter Yurachek, the Arkansas AD, supposedly wants an established head coach, proven head coach who has a track record of building programs. I mean, say what you will about Coach Prime, but I would give him that. I mean, he has definitely built up the Colorado program from what it was when he took it over. Did a good job building up Jackson State into something that it was not when he took that over. You can debate where this team is headed and where things are going without Travis Hunter and his son, Shedeur Sanders, but he did also get those guys in the fold. Okay. So I understand why there would at least be some interest there. Now, if you're Coach Prime, are you going to go to Arkansas? I don't know. I guess my question on Deion for that would be, how much does Deion, how much does he care about the SEC, the prestige of that, just being at any old job? Is he wanting to sit it out and wait for like a Florida or Florida State. I mean, I guess that's another thing. Florida is probably going to come open. I doubt that they would have a lot of interest there. It is the arch rival of his alma mater. I don't know. It feels like Deion is not a hot enough name to garner a job like that. And honestly, I'm a little bit surprised that his name would still be hot enough right now that Arkansas would have a ton of interest, but I am going to trust, Pete Nakos and On3 there, that there at least seems to be some level of interest on the Arkansas side. But, one thing I would say, I guess that does kind of make sense when I say, hey, it seems like a weird fit. Well, I talk all the time about like the pendulum always swings to the total opposite end of the spectrum when somebody is hiring a coach, right? You had an offensive guy, you hire a defensive guy. You had a real intense, fiery guy, you hire the Zen, like Dave Aranda type. Well, Sam Pittman was an offensive line coach, not flashy. He was not a big name at all when he was hired, and he's an Arkansas guy through and through. Meanwhile, Deion, flashy, DB, massive name, and a guy that would be more of just like national guy with no real ties to Arkansas outside of, again, I guess, Jerry Jones. So it would make sense in terms of the pendulum swinging the other way. But I don't know. I'd have a hard time seeing this, to be completely honest. But how about this other name that was mentioned? Okay, now we turn to 24/7 Sports, who listed, I believe it was 9 candidates on a hot board. One of those being Mr. Mike Gundy, now a free agent. Okay, so those conversations can happen as freely as they want them to. No need to back channel there. You can go call up the Mike Gundy residence, I'm sure, right now and talk to him yourself. If we think about the Hunter Yurachek wish list, okay, once again, Yurachek wants an established head coach that has built up a reputation of being able to build programs. I mean, Mike Gundy is going to fit that better than about anybody on the market. He definitely still wants to coach. That's also been established. Somebody asked Gundy's brother, like, hey, does he still want to coach? And the answer was like, hell yes, like absolutely. So there's no doubt, I would think, that there would be interest from Mike Gundy in that job. It's just that Mike Gundy appears to be somebody who was not on the cutting edge of NIL, not somebody who was like a huge fan of it and where the game is going. So in general, is that the type of guy that you would want to go hire? I mean, my answer would be probably not. But then beyond that, this was even a quote bouncing back to the On3 article. This was what a source told Pete Nakos about Sam Pittman. Said, quote, Sam was never the biggest fan of NIL. He thought too many guys were getting paid to be underperformers. And look, I do think that's a reasonable stance to have. Like, that's a reasonable thing to look around in college football these days and be like, man, really kind of bothers me that I got to go look at this guy who's not caring, not doing what he needs to do, and he's making $600,000 or whatever it is. Like, that kind of bothers me. I get that. Reasonable stance to have. I can understand, especially how like old school coaches would have that stance. However, if you're going to win in college football in 2025, you can't have that attitude about it. You can't. You got to be someone that goes full bore, embraces it, especially winning in the SEC. You're not going to do it without an excellent roster. You're just not going to do it. That's a prereq. And it's already getting harder in the SEC for schools to have as dominant of rosters as they used to. Okay. I don't know. Mike Gundy, like, I guess I get why you throw that out there because of the criteria mentioned and he's available and all of that. But that seems to fly in the face of what Arkansas would really be looking for right now. It was also mentioned that Hunter Yurachek, the AD there, wants to get somebody who would be able to drum up a bunch of support and like unanimous support among donors and get people excited to donate money. I don't know that a just fired Big 12 coach is going to do that, even if he is a guy as legendary as Mike Gundy. And Deion might have a shot. I could see how you could sell people getting around him there. Either way, I don't expect either one of those moves to be super likely at Arkansas. But interesting enough, because if you would have told me, hey, some Big 12 coaches are going to get mentioned at Arkansas, I would have thought, all right, well, Matt Campbell, I'm sure his name will just get thrown out there because everybody assumes, for whatever reason at this point, after all the jobs that he's turned down, that he's going to want to still leave Ames, Iowa. And then, I don't know, I might have said someone go after like a Lance Leipold, like you just start working your way down or Kenny Dillingham, you know. I did see some people earlier in the chat talk about, Kenny Dillingham Is that somebody that would be interested or pursued there? I don't, if Kenny Dillingham's leaving his alma mater, Arizona State, it would be for an upper tier Big Ten or SEC job, I would think. Don't think that it's going to be that. So anyway, please do like the video. We've had a lot more people file in now. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. Very helpful. Appreciate everybody who does that. John-Kurtz-4 on Venmo. If you want to drop a question or comment there with a donation, I'll read it to kick off the next show. Or you can do it right now by clicking the $sign below the chat box to submit a super chat. But you can also just fill up the regular chat. Super chat just guarantees that you get on tonight. And subscribe to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter, ofbnews.com, or click the link in the description of the video to get Big 12 news to your inbox twice a week, totally for free. Join 5,200 plus Big 12 fans who already do. All right. I hate this story. I hate it. But we got to talk about it because I think it has some pretty massive ramifications on college football and the landscape and where things are going. The Big Ten is going to take the plunge on private equity. It sure appears, according to reporting from ESPN. I mean, everybody, but ESPN had it first. And with it, the Big Ten is killing any thought of a super league. So those of us that wanted Project Rudy, multiple outside entities have tried to kick around and workshop the idea of how to make a super league work. This, by virtue of a 10-year extension on the grant of rights, going to kill that. And it's also going to open a can of worms of unequal revenue sharing. So you can look at this and celebrate it if you are a mid to lower tier Big Ten team. But this is also opening up the door to unequal revenue sharing. And there are a lot of details here that lead me to believe this is kind of the first step toward that happening, not just with private equity money that would be coming in, but just any money. And I will get to that. All right. I'll leave that as a tease. I'm going to get to that here in the article because the way this starts to read, I'm looking at this like, all right, well, sounds great. We can all cheer this. If we're Maryland, if we're Michigan State, if we're Minnesota, we can all cheer this right now. But where does this ultimately lead in terms of how we're going to be able to stack up against our peers in this conference? So I'm just going to start reading to you some from the article. The Big Ten is in discussions about a private capital deal. Now, this is interesting. Private equity was like the headline that was going around on Twitter, but private capital. So distinction there. It's not an outside entity that will have actual legit ownership and be able to make decisions and like have a board seat and all that. That's not what's going to happen here. It's a private capital infusion, but then you're on the hook for kicking them back some of your revenue every single year. This is very similar to, and yes, fair to say, Big 12 has explored this. Reporting has been out there about that. It's the same type of thing that we heard when the Big 12 was exploring some of this. The discussions include a 10-year extension of the league's grant of rights until 2046, which would ensure long-term stability in the Big Ten. A deal in the grant of rights extension would also be a distinct blow to the outside entities attempting to form super leagues around college sports. And again, it's just like, look, if people are going to be tied up with their media rights to the Big Ten for another 10 years, you're talking about 2046. That's obviously making it much more difficult to do anything with, pooling media rights, which that's been in the news, right? It's actually, you have a Republican bill that's out there about the future of college sports. That is the SCORE Act. You have the SAFE Act now that's been proposed by Democrats. And actually the SAFE Act is the one that syncs more with what Cody Campbell is trying to do, which is use the Sports Broadcasting Act, amend that to be able to pool everybody's media rights and make a bunch more money, which is interesting here because the Big Ten and the SEC have been against that. But the idea with this, as we're going to read here, is to be able to be more organized, to pool everybody together to make more money within the Big Ten. So, what you have here is all for me, not for thee. Big Ten wants to do it all for themselves, not make the entity as a whole better. And so they're going to get $2 billion in private equity. It sure sounds like here. Now, on that front, the article says a decision either way on the private capital deal is expected in the upcoming weeks. Nothing is considered imminent or certain. They're considering 3 different plans from 3 different places. The league has not taken a vote. Now, this is where I start to say, all right, let's hone in this discussion on teams that even if you're not in the Big Ten, but you're in the SEC, you're thinking, well, this will be a precedent setting thing. Okay. So if you're Vanderbilt, if you're Northwestern, if you're Minnesota, Michigan State, Maryland, like these type of schools, you got to be looking at this like, all right, where's this going? Now, they're all supporting this, obviously, for right now, and it will give them more money total. I guess it'll give them a leg up on their peers in the Big 12 and the ACC. But I think eventually this puts them a lot further behind the top crust of the Big Ten. The setup being discussed, sources said, is that this will essentially be the formation of a new commercial entity within the Big Ten that would house all revenue generation, such as media rights, sponsorships, and league revenue streams. The working title for the new entity is Big Ten Enterprises, sources told ESPN. Big Ten Enterprises. Doesn't all this just sound exactly like why we all got into college sports and love college sports? Because it's great and it's zany and we have all these unique personalities. And now we get Big Ten Enterprises where we just house all of these different random revenue streams that we have. And we get to be suit and tie in the corporate world with Big Ten Enterprises. Vomit, dude. The Big Ten will essentially have 20 equity shares comprising the 18 schools, the league, and this investor. Sources told ESPN the setup eliminates the need to give an outside investor a specific portion of control. They won't have board seats. And here's a quote on that. Quote, think of it this way. The conference is not selling a piece of the conference. Traditional conference functions would remain 100% with the conference office. The new entity being created would focus on business development, and it would include an outside investor with a small financial stake. All right, so you create Big Ten Enterprises that, will not control anything, but will handle the money. All right, well, you're saying, John, what is this going to do? What actually would this, like, tangibly, what does that mean? This seems great. What does it mean? Well, they get Nebraska's AD on the record in the story to talk about it. Well, actually, I think part of it's Nebraska's AD, part of it's an anonymous source. So here's an anonymous source that says, quote, we're underselling the strength of what we do, the way we are structured. This is a way to organize ourselves better. Okay. Then the Nebraska AD starts talking about if we're going to sell jersey patch advertising, right? Like a advertisement on the jersey. He's talking about, I could do it on my own. I'm going to make some money, but not a ton. But he says, I would really like to see if there's an opportunity for our conference to put all those jersey patch rights together. And all of a sudden, they're worth a whole lot more to the institutions when 18 are playing instead of just one. Guys, I'm not going to lie. I read that and I just wanted to beat my head against a wall because all I've heard from the Big Ten corners of the earth is, well, I'm skeptical that the Sports Broadcasting Act and pooling all these media rights together for all the conferences would actually make that much more money. We're against that. We're skeptical of that. Well, you're using the same concept here. Hey, instead of just us doing the jersey patches, what if we pool them all together so that we can all leech off Ohio State's jersey patch and make more money together? It's the same thing. What's the Office meme? Like corporate asks you to point out the difference between these two pictures. It's the same thing. Spider-Man meme. It's the same thing. And I also had to just laugh at, we're underselling the strength of what we do, the way we're structured. This is a way to organize ourselves better. I mean, is there no hint of irony in that? And just thinking about the sport as a whole right now, like we're underselling the strength of what we do, the way we're structured. We need to organize better. Yeah, the sport needs to organize better, not plunge down a private capital hole here. I don't know, dude. You guys know where I stand on this. I hate it all. But the kicker here for all your mid-tier to lower tier Big Ten and SEC schools is the amount of the payments that would be doled out is still being discussed, but the basic format, sources told ESPN, is believed to be tiered. All schools in the league are expected to receive at least a 9-figure amount up front. So it's a ton of money coming in up front. 9 figures. I mean, we're talking, there's a big deal made about Kansas getting the $300 million, right? Be like every school getting that sort of payment up front from the private equity, private capital infusion. But the final financial details are still being discussed as bigger brands are expected to receive more money. That's like buried at the very end of this story. It's unequal revenue sharing. You're going to have unequal revenue sharing. So, okay, we're talking about, I realize that here it is talking about specifically the money that's coming in from private equity being unequally shared. But all that money's going into we already learned all that money's going into the same pot, the same Big Ten enterprises pot. So your TV revenue, your whatever, jersey patch revenue, your private equity revenue, it's all going into one pot. And then they're going to distribute it, and they're already figuring out, well, hey, if we're getting a bunch of private equity money, it's not fair for Ohio State to get the same amount as Northwestern, so let's unequal. They've opened up the box, guys. They've opened it up. Mid to lower tier SEC and Big Ten schools, you're going to fall further behind. You will fall further behind those schools in your conference because they're going to start unequal revenue sharing. And at the same time, you've now signed your rights away until 2046, which there's really no choice on that. I get that. I understand. But this is just, a lot of us have said, hey, this is coming. It's really fun to be, I guess, right now, to be a lower tier Big Ten or SEC school and point at everybody and call them in the Big 12 and ACC and call them poor and make fun of them while you go take your beating every single year and have a miserable time actually playing football and watching the games and all of those things. But I mean, the fun's going to start to run out a little bit when Ohio State's making 10 times as much as you, and all this stuff is just being put in a giant pot and unequally distributed based on brand. So I don't know. We'll see where this goes. I know it says nothing's imminent, but the story doesn't get written if people don't think this is actually going to happen. I guess the other thing I should say is, I thought once the stories are being written about the 4 auto bid plan for the playoff, the 4-4-2-2, that playoff plan was getting written about a lot. I thought for sure that was going to happen. It didn't. So there's always time for an upset. There's always the possibility that it doesn't happen, but it sure feels like it. It sure feels like it right now if it's going to get written up by everybody. So we shall see. The other thing, and I know, Big Ten people hate me by this point, but whatever. It's just like the Big Ten is like driving the bus at the forefront of every decision that's just kind of greedy and bad for the sport, be it expanding the playoff to like 50 teams. Every single time it's like playoff expansion. Back to the Kevin Warren days, trying to be a conqueror of the map and everything he's pushing. It's just like the Big Ten. They take less heat than the SEC because the SEC is so much more vocal. Its fan base is so much more vocal, and Sankey is just a more easily hateable guy, and he's out there in the media more. The Big Ten is more sinister behind the scenes, man. I tell you what. Although, they're all at it right now. Paul Feinbaum, who, by the way, apparently is going to run for, he's going to try to go to Congress. I forget if it was the House or the Senate. I think it's senator. I don't know. Either way, Paul Feinbaum's thinking about getting into politics, but not before firing off a take that, Florida State's win over Alabama doesn't mean anything anymore because Alabama's now a different team than they were in week 1. And now Florida State's resume is worse because, they lost at Virginia, as opposed to Alabama losing to Florida State. It's like, dude, this guy. I said, get him into politics and out of our sports lives, but then, he might be able to do more damage in politics. Who knows? Who knows these days with the way college sports is now being intersected all over the place in politics. So fair pushback. Those who push back on me with that, we shall see. Anyway, just try and enjoy your football while you can, my friends. That's what I'm going to say. Try and enjoy your Big 12 football while you can. You can click the $ below the chat box to submit a super chat. Appreciate you guys that support the channel that way. Like my friend Payson Cougar fan. Payson Cougar fan, thank you for being here, man. Says, we respect Colorado coaches team and most of their fans. Inebriated students do not label an entire group. Go Cougs. Yeah, I've got a lot to say about that, Payson Cougar fan, and I will in just a moment. I'm going to talk about the games coming up this weekend first, and then I'm going to close the show tonight with some thoughts on what happened there between BYU and Colorado at the game. I've got a lot of insight. As somebody who has experienced multiple games in Boulder as a visiting fan / student radio, person, I can tell some stories. And I talked to some folks who went to the game as BYU fans this weekend. But we're going to play the Coach Prime clip. I'm glad to hear this Payson Cougar fan. Seems like Coach Prime gained a bunch of BYU fans for the way he handled this, which I think is very much deserved. Very much deserved in a positive way. So thank you, Payson Cougar fan. Please do like the video. Those of you that are here, subscribe to the channel. All of that really helps. Appreciate everybody who does that. Subscribe to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter at ofbnews.com. You can do that too, ofbnews.com. It really helps, and I appreciate everybody who does that. Okay. Are Houston and Cincy ready to crash the party? Are they ready to shut people like me up? Are they ready to prove everyone in the Big 12 wrong? Because ready or not, here's the chance. It's this weekend. Houston gets Texas Tech in their building. Cincinnati gets Iowa State in their building. Here it is. These are the two best teams in the Big 12 right now. I mean, I think to a man, most people are going to agree with that statement. If you don't, I guess you say Arizona State. And to me, they would be number 3. But it looks like these are the top 2 Big 12 contenders. Cincy and Houston have been lurking and thinking, hey, we deserve more respect. Now's your opportunity to really go earn it. Okay? That to me is what this weekend is about. Like, it feels like we have the tier of Big 12 contenders kind of figured out. Like I said, I would go Texas Tech, Iowa State, Arizona State, 1, 2, 3. You want to throw Utah and TCU in there. I'm still good with them being in being labeled as contenders right now. And then like BYU flirting with it. Need to see a little bit more, but flirting with it. And the question then is, can Cincinnati at 3-1, but with a great win at Kansas, and or Houston at 4-0, but doing it by the skin of their teeth at winless Oregon State last week, can they actually jump into that group and get serious consideration for it? You got to go win, or I guess play very, very, a knockdown, drag out sort of a game here. But really, you got to win this. If you're going to be the underdog, you got to go win by TKO, man. You got to go knock out the champ, so to speak here. The champ being Iowa State, who played for a Big 12 title last year, and Texas Tech definitely looks and is paid like the best team in the Big 12. Now, as far as what the outside world thinks of this game, I mean, if you're looking at statistical models, if you're looking at Vegas, these games, much better shot, everybody giving Cincinnati to beat Iowa State. Cincinnati, in fact, is a 1.5 point favorite right now. If you're going to bet this game, I saw, I think S&P Plus from Bill Connolly at ESPN, which I really like. His computer formula had it like a 3-point game in favor of Iowa State. So it was still close, but did give the lean to the Cyclones. I mean, I'll be honest. Look, if you pin it on a bulletin board, throw it in a video, whatever you need to do, Cincinnati and Houston, I would still be pretty stunned if Cincinnati beat Iowa State. And I would be pretty stunned if I would be pretty stunned if Cincinnati beat Iowa State. Okay, full stop. I would be absolutely shocked if Houston beat Texas Tech. I would be shocked. Put it on a bulletin board somewhere, and that's fine. It's not anything personal. You guys know that I love Willie Fritz. Scott Satterfield, I gave a big apology to this last week because, I did not think they at all had that in them to go do it at Kansas. And they did actually impress me a decent amount against Nebraska earlier this year. And that's a guy that I just totally written off. But I think it's a different deal to be playing Iowa State and Texas Tech. Now, there are some things to take advantage of here, okay? If you're Cincinnati, you'd be looking at the news today that Iowa State this week that Iowa State lost its other starting corner for the year. Jontez Williams is now out for the year. So Iowa State has lost both starting corners to ACL injuries this year, which is terrible. And I hate that for them. But what's the big strength? What's the big strength of Cincinnati? It's throwing it all over the yard, man. Brendan Sorsby was just throwing it up and down the field all Saturday in Lawrence. Weird, because, again, I watched him throw for less than 100 passing yards against Nebraska. But if your defense has got some holes, like Sorsby can definitely take advantage of that. I'm sure Nippert is going to be rocking. I'm sure it's going to be cranked up. that's a place that, desperately wants to get back to where it was during the Luke Fickell era, when it was a very tough place to play. So I get it. Like, I understand it. But it's like Rocco Beck makes the plays when he needs to all the time. Iowa State's got some fringe championship pedigree by getting to the Big 12 championship game last year. A lot of good veteran experienced pieces still on that team. The Houston Texas Tech game, it is more. Baron Morton's going to play, okay, first and foremost, which you guys know my take on that. I'm not so sure that that's the best thing for Texas Tech long term, but I do actually think in a game like this, like against Houston, Houston does have a pretty good defense. I think against like the elite defenses, I'd rather be rolling with Will Hammond against it than Baron Morton, but Baron Morton can definitely carve up a bad defense. Anyway, Tech just has so much talent across the board. It feels like they will overwhelm Houston. Connor Wegman has been a nice comeback story this year. It's been really nice to, just from a personal level, to see his career rejuvenated this year. And I think Houston is so much better at quarterback this year than they were last year. It's the reason they won the game at Oregon State. There's no way that Donovan Smith or Zion Chris are bringing you back the way that Connor Wegman did, just in like the snap of a finger in the fourth quarter, down by 14. But going up against that Texas Tech defense, especially that Texas Tech front, I don't know. I fear for what that will mean for Connor Wegman throughout that game. As long as Texas Tech is dialed in, that would be, I guess, the one thing I worry about if they've gotten too high on their own supply over the last 2 weeks after not playing and everybody loving them up and being close to the top 10 and all of that. It is a dangerous situation from that standpoint. But I will still be pretty shocked if that comes to fruition. But if it does, you're going to get another apology laid out. There'll be a big time Willie Fritz apology if that were to happen. And you know what? I'll just double down on the Scott Satterfield apology if they beat Iowa State as well. But you guys are correct. I see people in the chat talking about, hey, the injuries with being why they're favored. Understood. That's definitely a tough blow for Iowa State there, and they're going up against a really good passing offense. Outside of that in the league, it's like, man, teams just decimated with injuries and guys leaving. West Virginia's losing Nico, shutting it down for the season, apparently entering the transfer portal. Sucks, man. That sucks. Thought he was really starting to come into his own in the Pitt game. Expected a medically redshirt, is what Pete Nakos had reported there. And then you've got like Oklahoma State. This is another thing you'd expect to start happening. Guys there looking around at 4 games being like, hey, man, can I still take my red shirt? Demarion Thomas, the best defensive lineman for Oklahoma State, he's going to sit out the rest of the season and look to transfer. So, it's a bummer. It's the world we live in college athletics now, though. And guys looking out for their best interest, honestly, like I get it. I get why that is happening. TCU needs to get back. Must-win game for TCU against Colorado if they're still going to be a contender. You can't waste too much time there. You got to go get back on the horse and you got to go win. You're going to be at home for that. Kansas at UCF, similar type of deal. Kansas, if you're going to be the team that really has a shot to be on the fringes of competing for a Big 12 title, you want to be like an 8-9 win team, you better go win at UCF. But that is a road game. I'm sure the bounce house will be bumping. Oklahoma State, Arizona. Yeah, we'll see what Oklahoma State's able to piece together the rest of the year. Game that Arizona needs to win. Definitely a game that Arizona needs to win if they're going to go bowling this year, if you start looking at their schedule. And then K-State Baylor. I didn't mention Baylor in any of the contender talks. They're only 1-1 in the Big 12. They're not mathematically eliminated. I've just seen now a couple of tough home losses where they're just not getting over the hump. The defense still has issues. I don't trust Baylor. Love Sawyer Robertson. I don't trust Baylor. K-State, if K-State wins this, then, hey, maybe we can start talking about, hey, maybe this team is a team that could be, 7-5, finish 7-5, something like that. If not, you're probably still looking at a rough sub 500 a year. West Virginia, BYU, forget about that on Friday night. You get your late night game on Friday, Big 12 after dark. I guess that's kind of where this started, right? West Virginia losing Nico. Other quarterback options look pretty rough. I'd expect BYU's defense to put the clamps down there, even if their offense has a tough time getting going. But, this could be a real opportunity to get Bear Bachmeier rolling, get him some more confidence, continue to build on what happened against Colorado. All right, please do like the video, subscribe to the channel. Appreciate everybody who's here. Appreciate everybody who does that. We continue to grow and grow with the audience tonight. Make sure you subscribe to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter as well. It's ofbnews.com. In order to do that, that is ofbnews.com to subscribe to that. You can click the $ to submit a super chat if you would like, and you can also hit me up on Venmo at John-Kurtz-4 with a question or comment if you so choose, if you would like to support that way. And I will kick off the next show with it if you leave me a question or comment there. We close with this, though. All right. Look, both the Big 12 and Deion Sanders had BYU and its fans back this week big time. And it's been refreshing to see BYU be one fan base that does get Deion. I think gets him in a way that a lot of people don't. And I always get a bit frustrated with the way that nobody really can. So something good coming from the bad here. All right. Look, the bad is Colorado loses the game to BYU. And predictably, there were anti-LDS, like anti-Mormon chants that were breaking out at the game. Obviously, the one that most people talk about, the F the Mormons chant. And it's not the first time, nor probably the last, sadly, that BYU fans will have to deal with this. You've definitely seen it talked about before. Is basketball season, right? Did that come up? Maybe a BYU fan in the chat can jog my memory about that. But this is unfortunately not novel. It's not unique. And it surprises me 0% that it happened at Colorado. Now that's, Deion says in the clip that I'm going to play you in a minute here, don't judge everybody because of some drunk and possibly high students. And I'm not, but the students have been a problem at Colorado going back to the Big 8 days, right? Like growing up, I used to hear about that all the time. And then I went to Boulder a couple of times for games and I got to experience it firsthand. If you've been around this channel for a while, you guys have heard me tell this story before, but in my student radio days, I went in 2008 and 2010 to Boulder. And I forget which year it was. We had the car. I think it was 2010. We had a Kansas State University, like a university car. So it has like the university seal on the side of it, it just says K-State. And we parked it in the media parking, whatever. We go into the game, call the game. K-State loses, tight game, not great teams. And we get back out to the car. We're getting ready to leave, and we hadn't noticed anything under our tires. But when we back out, you just hear psh, 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 because they had stuck empty beer bottles underneath the tires, obviously with the effort to puncture the tires. Now, thankfully, K-State, great job with the fleet of vehicles we had. We did not have a punctured tire, and we made it home okay. But, that was the treatment that we got at Colorado. And the other thing that I always remind people of, this will be a fun one. I'll bring this back up to you. I bet you guys didn't think that today you'd be watching a clip of a 2005 college football game, but I'm about to take you into 2005 Colorado, Nebraska here to see the antics of the Colorado students at this point. All right. So Mike Tirico is on the call, and he's gonna feel a certain type of way here about what goes down with the Colorado students.
And we have a couple more things thrown from that student section. About 5-6 things now thrown. And the officials stopped. Remember, we told you they went over and said something to Gary Barnett earlier. And they're throwing water bottles and other projectiles down.
And they don't realize this is hurting their team now because they used 20 seconds off the clock there, that last play, and now they'll reset the play clock and he'll get more time.
Forget that. You're right about that from a game standpoint. The people are idiots. And to come to a game and do something like that, there's no nice way to say that you're a fool.
I mean, just really funny from Mike Tirico. And it goes on for another couple of minutes, right? I mean, I'm not going to make you guys sit through the whole thing. You can go find the video on YouTube if you want to watch the rest of it. But it goes on for multiple minutes, and Tirico is like really going in on these guys. Anyway, this has been the reputation of Colorado students for a while. Unfortunately, I think BYU the other piece of this is that BYU gets this more so than like, Notre Dame. I don't hear as much of I don't hear the Catholics being an issue. TCU has Christian in the name. I'm not going to speculate or get into like the reasons why it seems like BYU gets it rougher, but it seems like they become like a target that people are more willing to attack when they go on the road all the time. So it's a crappy situation. Now, I'll give everybody involved credit here that, the Big 12 did step up and do something this time. And this is after, by the way, I did talk to a friend who went to the game as a BYU fan that gave me an eyewitness report of this and basically confirmed all of this, that, yeah, it was rough. And there were people even before the game, during, not so much after because BYU had won, but there were people. It was an eye-opening experience, I guess I can put it that way, which I tried to prepare him for because I kind of knew what was coming here. So, the Big 12 needed to do something and did, and I do appreciate that. Now, they fined Colorado $50,000. It's not like that's a fortune, okay? We were just talking about Big 10 schools getting a 9-figure paycheck from private capital infusion. So $50,000, chump change compared to something like that, but it was enough to at least get it in the headlines. It was enough to get people talking about it. Your ESPN on threes, like everybody was writing about it. And so hopefully that becomes a deterrent for others. Like you have to generate some interest there for it to, I think, become a deterrent for others. I know you could argue that either way. If you make a bigger deal out of it, does that, encourage some students to be more brazen? I guess like maybe, but I also feel like hopefully this gets schools to be more on their like P's and Q's about it, snuff it out early if it happens elsewhere. And just, symbolically, I think it was great of the Big 12 to step up and do something like that. Now, Colorado released a statement. It's whatever. It's okay. University of Colorado Boulder strongly condemns the use of expletives and religious slurs by individuals in the stands. Such behavior is deeply disappointing, doesn't value respect, inclusion, integrity that we expect of our Colorado community. It's a pretty standard PR-y kind of statement. But Coach Prime decided to speak out about it at his press conference, and I think this was, comes across much more heartfelt, much more genuine, and it seemingly gained him a bunch of fans within the BYU fan base.
On behalf of CU, on behalf of our athletic department, we would like to apologize to our opponents from a week ago for whatever derogatory statements were made by our fans. That's not indicative of who we are. Our student body, our kids are phenomenal. So don't indict us just based on a group of young kids that probably was intoxicated and high simultaneously. Maybe I shouldn't have said that as well. But the truth will make you free. But BYU, we love you, we appreciate you, and we support you. God bless.
All right. Honestly, I think that's pretty well done. Pretty well done from Coach Prime there. Being genuine about it. Yes, he is trying to say, hey, don't judge all of us. But, it's not fair to judge their football team. And he's a coach and has a football team that gets judged unfairly, I think, a lot of the time because of he and who they are. So I can understand that. And I've loved so again, kudos to Dion for doing that. Because I think that will help. Like that, people hopefully seeing Dion out there talking about it and condemning it will help it happening in the future. And also just looking at the BYU fan reaction to that on Twitter, I was like, this is good because people are like appreciating Prime for this and kind of seeing the good in him, which I think there's a lot of it. Like, I'm not going to say that I have loved every single thing he's done since he took over as the head coach at Colorado or just has been a college football coach. But really about the only thing that I didn't like was how he handled the media when, he had the deal with Sean Keeler from the Denver Post where he wasn't going to allow him to ask questions. And, I don't like that where it seemed like he was trying to, in some ways engineer some state-run media sort of deal. But outside of that, he's generally, I think people look at him and he's just incredibly confident, and that intimidates a lot of people. That's off-putting to some people, seeing somebody who's really confident, but he's pretty confident and pretty honest. brutally honest, I guess to a fault sometimes, but I appreciate the honesty and I appreciate the confidence. And I think he's genuinely a pretty good dude. And, it's amazing to me. I think people just have preconceived notions about him. And this was a lot of BYU fans in the comments like, oh, wow, like he's got a lot of class and respect and this is real leadership. And I was kind of like, yeah, I mean, I do think Dion has a ton of that, even if a lot of people don't give him enough credit for that. So I thought that was a cool thing to come out of this. To be honest, I think people just have judged based on a couple things that they see or think. And to me, one of the real true indicators of this and like who he is and how he should be respected in that vein is that like the coaching community seems to really like him. He's talked a lot about Kalani Sitake and Joey McGuire, guys across the Big 12. Mike Gundy actually was another one that spoke really highly of him multiple times at Big 12 media days. Like the coaching community seems to respect him and think he's a good, and I think all these people that think, oh, just fraud and all this glitz and glamour is stupid. The coaching community, I don't think would respect him the way that they do if that were really the case. So, anyway, just a thought. I appreciate that happened because I am optimistic now that this will affect some real change and you don't see this happen across the rest of the Big 12, obviously for BYU's sake, for BYU's fans' sake, for just like humanity's sake, but also like for the Big 12's sake. Like you don't need the Big 12 having to do this because of multiple student sections out there across the league. You need to make an example here to get it snuffed out before this becomes some sort of problem across the league all the time. So anyway, some thoughts there. Guys, I had to dip a little bit early today to run off. So thank you for popping in earlier time slot with me today. I appreciate everybody for being here. Make sure that you are subscribed to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter at ofbnews.com. Make sure that you like the video, subscribe to the channel. Appreciate everybody who does that. And it's John-Kurtz-4 on Venmo. If you want to leave a question or comment there, I will kick off the next show with it for anybody that did not catch the show live. So take care. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. I'll be talking to you all very soon.